Hey everybody, it's Coach Hammock coming to you from beautiful Georgetown, Texas, here in room 132. Hoping you're having a great evening. Basketball game tonight, last one for the boys. Good luck with that. Hopefully let's take care of Pflugerville. Track starts Monday, so there you go. All right, so today what we're going to be doing is, I think I showed both classes, but we're going to be solving this equation right here, okay? And in order to do that, we've multiplied binomials using FOIL. We know how to factor. Okay, but now we're going to factor this trinomial, okay, and it's going to have a certain form, and we'll talk about that in just a second. And then we're going to solve equations making sure that it's equal to 0. That is a big deal. All right, make sure it's equal to 0. Okay, so right here we're going to factor trinomials. So the form is basically x squared plus bx plus c. Tomorrow in the video it will be ax squared plus bx plus c, but today we're going to go with just the coefficient of 1 in the front. Okay, so what we're going to do is you can read over this if you want. I find it's easier to just jump in and see from examples. Alright, so we're going to factor x squared plus 7x plus 12. Alright, so the first thing I want you to do is I want you to look at this first one right here. Okay, and what it's going to be, we're going to have a set of binomials, two binomials that are going to multiply together using the FOIL method and are going to solve this. Okay, so how do we get x squared? Well, x squared is an x times an x. Now, after you look at the first term and you have that set, the next thing you're going to do is look at the signs. Because b and c are positive, we know that these are both going to be positives right there. Okay, so now we look at c, and remember it's x squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so now I need two numbers that multiply together to give me 12 but add together to give me 7. Well, let's see, I could go 12 times 1, but that is 13. I could go 6 times 2, but when I add those together it gives me 8. I could go 4 times 3, which gives me 7. And so that's what I'm going to be using, the 4 and the 3. And because it's a 1 right here, it doesn't matter what order I put it in. I'm just going to put 4 there and 3 there. Now to check these, what we're able to do is go ahead and FOIL it out and see what we get. And when we do, we would get x squared plus 3x plus 4x plus 12. And when you add the 3x and the 4x, you're going to get that 7x. So our answer is right here in red. It's going to be the binomial x plus 4 times the binomial x plus 3. All right, so let's do this one. We're going to factor x squared plus 3x plus 2. Well, I'll let you try that first. Oh, by the way, guys, if it's multiple choice, you could just multiply them together and see which one gives you x squared plus 3x plus 2. But then again, it might be open-ended, so you'll have to be able to solve it as well. Okay, so looking at the first term, it's x squared. So I know that I'm going to be x times x. Numbers that multiply together to give me 2, but add together to give me 3. 2 is a prime number. All that multiplies together is plus 2 and plus 1. Looking around, looks like B is my answer right there. Okay, now what if C is positive but B is negative? Well, we start out the same way. We look at the first term. We look at the AX, or just the X. It's x squared, so it's going to be an X times an X. Now, with this being negative and this being positive, well, when numbers multiply together to give me positives, it can either both be positives or they can both be negatives. And that's the case right here, because we need numbers to multiply together to give me a negative 27, but add together to give me negative 12. Positive 27, negative 12. Well, let's see, we could go negative 27 and negative 1, but that's negative 28. That's not going to work. We could go negative 9 and negative 3, which would be negative 12. And that's what we're going to use right there. So we're going to put a negative 9 in and a negative 3. When we multiply that out, everything works. It gives me x squared minus 12x plus 27. There will be a lot of trying numbers, not working, try something else. If you want to put a little chart over here on the side, that's a good idea, especially when we start putting variables in the front. It can get kind of confusing, and it's a lot of trial and error on this concept. Okay, so factor x squared minus 10x plus 16. All right, because this is a positive and this is a negative, I know that they both have to be negatives. So A cannot be the answer, B cannot be the answer. So let's try to work this out and see where we go. Well, I know it's going to be an x times an x, and I know that they're both going to be negatives. And to get a negative 16, but numbers that add together to give negative 10. Well, it could be negative 16 and negative 1, negative 8 and negative 2, or negative 4 and negative 4. And I'm thinking negative 8 and negative 2 are probably our best bet, because when we add negative 8x and negative 2x, we're going to get negative 10x. So C is going to be our answer right there. Okay, so what do you do if the last number's negative but this one's positive? Well, that means that we're going to have still the same in the front right here. It's still x in the front, but now we need two numbers that multiply to give a negative 18 and add to give a negative or a positive 3. Well, I know that a positive times a negative is going to give me a negative number. And when I'm adding these together, I know that the bigger number has to be a positive, because that's what I'm left with. I'm left with a positive 3. So for 18, it could be 18 and 1, could be 9 and 2, could be, what else could it be? Oh, how about 6 and 3? Okay. So if it was a negative 18 and a positive 1, that would give me negative 17. Well, and then it's always good to try it the other way too. Negative 18 or positive 18 and negative 1 would give me positive 17. So I know it's not either one of those. Well, what if it was a negative 9 and a positive 2? That would give me negative 7. Well, if I flip the sign and made the 9 positive and the 2 negative, that would be a positive 7. So it can't be that. Let's try a positive 6 and a negative 3. When I add those together, I get a positive 3. When I multiply them together, I get negative 18. So that's going to be my answer, and I'm going to put a 6 there and a 3 right there. Okay. When you FOIL this out, again, you do get the correct answer right there. Okay. So what if C is negative and B is negative? Well, it's the same thing right here, except the bigger number this time, it was positive before, and this time the bigger number is going to be negative. So x and x right there. Now it's negative 1, so I need two numbers that multiply to give me a negative 20 that are very close together, because when we add them, we're going to get a negative 1. All right, pause the video and try to figure out for yourself real quick. All right, so when I worked it out, I got negative 5 and positive 4. And when we work this out, we do get the right answer there. Okay, go ahead and solve this one. Ready, go. Okay. All right. So let's see what we've got right here. We've got a negative 5 and a positive 4. Well, 5 is pretty easy because it's just 5 and 1. So it looks like it's going to be a positive 5 and a negative 1. So it's going to be x plus 5, x minus 1. Looking through, plus 5 minus 1, answers A. Okay, so now we get to where we're adding the equal sign. And remember, we are wanting these to equal 0. So how do I get this to equal 0? I subtract 15, subtract 15. I come up with x squared plus 2x minus 15 equals 0. So right now I go back and all I'm going to do is I'm going to factor this out. Okay, so looking at it, it's going to be an x and an x. And then two numbers that give me a negative 15 when multiplied and a positive 2 when added. So the bigger number has to be a positive and the smaller number has to be a negative. Well, I know 5 and 3 are 2 away from each other. So if I went positive 5 and negative 3 right there, that would be it. Now those are equal to 0 now. So now I'm going to break apart this equation and go x plus 5 equals 0 and x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, so when I work this out, I get x equals, and I'm going to use my squiggly right there, negative 5 and 3. All right, so now if I wanted to check this, I could put this back into the equation, put negative 5 into this, and it would give me 15. And then I could put 3 in, and it would again give me 15. I want you to try that out and make sure that I'm right. Okay, so now we're going to solve x squared minus 20 equals x. Again, subtract x, subtract x. So what we're really going to solve is x squared minus x minus 20 equals 0. Okay? All right, so we factor this and we come up with an x and an x. Has to multiply to give me a negative and add to give me a negative 1. I'm going to go with negative 5 and positive 4. When it's 1, think about the numbers that are close together to give you this. All right, lots of trial and error in these though, and all of this is equal to 0. So x minus 5 equals 0 and x plus 4 equals 0. So x is going to be 5 and negative 4. All right, looks like C right there. Well, that's it for today. During class, we'll go over how to put these in your calculator and see the answers again. But hopefully you took some good notes on this. We'll do some work in class tomorrow. Y'all have a great evening. Go Eagles.